What happens when one of Britain's most beloved actors goes head-to-head with its most charming talk show host in an argument so intense that cameras nearly stopped rolling? In just 41 seconds, you'll witness the exact moment a legendary friendship shattered on live television. But before we get into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. We bring you daily videos exposing Hollywood's darkest scandals, the confrontations they don't want you to see, and the moments that change careers forever. Now, let's get into what happened last night. The Graham Norton Show has always been known for its lighthearted banter, celebrity drinking games, and that famous red chair. Guests get tipsy, tell embarrassing stories, and everyone goes home happy. It's comfort television at its finest. But last night, the atmosphere in that London studio turned ice cold when Sir Ian McKellen walked onto the set. What started as friendly conversation between two icons of British entertainment quickly spiraled into one of the most uncomfortable moments in talk show history. The evening began innocently enough. The studio was buzzing with its usual pre-show energy. Makeup artists made final touches, lighting technicians adjusted their equipment, and the audience filtered into their seats with excited chatter about who they might see tonight. Graham Norton greeted Ian with his usual warmth, that trademark smile plastered across his face. His arms spread wide in welcome, like he was greeting an old friend at a party. The audience applauded enthusiastically as Ian settled into the couch, adjusting his jacket with practiced ease and nodding politely to the crowd. The studio lights were bright, casting that familiar warm glow that makes everyone look just a bit more glamorous. The energy was high, the atmosphere was electric, and everything felt exactly as it should. For the first few minutes, everything seemed perfectly normal. They discussed Ian's latest theater production in the West End, a revival of a classic play that had been receiving incredible reviews from critics and audiences alike. Ian spoke passionately about returning to the stage after focusing on film work for several years, about the thrill of live performance where every night is different, about connecting with audiences in real time, without the safety net of multiple takes and post-production editing. His eyes lit up as he described the rehearsal process, the collaborative nature of theater, the magic that happens when a cast truly comes together. Graham listened attentively, nodding along, asking thoughtful questions about the rehearsal process and the challenges of performing the same role night after night, while keeping it fresh and authentic. He seemed genuinely interested, genuinely engaged, leaning forward with that body language that says, "I'm fascinated by what you're telling me." They laughed together about the differences between stage and screen, about the beast, unique pressures of each medium. They reminisced about old times, sharing stories about mutual friends in the industry. Graham brought up a party they'd both attended years ago, and Ian chuckled at the memory, adding details Graham had forgotten. They talked about actors they'd worked with, directors they admired, productions that had changed their lives. The audience was eating it up, completely engaged, hanging on every word, laughing at the right moments, going quiet during the more serious parts. This was the Graham Norton Show at its best. Ian seemed relaxed, comfortable, at ease in the familiar environment. He'd been on this show dozens of times before over the years. He and Graham had history, friendship, mutual respect built over decades of working in the same industry and moving in the same circles. They'd celebrated each other's successes, supported each other through challenges, been genuinely fond of one another. Graham poured drinks, his signature move that has become synonymous with the show, carefully measuring out wine while making jokes about becoming everyone's favorite bartender. They clinked glasses, the crystal ringing out in the studio. The other guests on the couch smiled and nodded along, waiting patiently for their turn to speak, enjoying the warm-up act. Everything was going according to plan. The producers in the control room were probably feeling pretty good about how the show was unfolding, checking their watches, mentally calculating segment times. Then Graham decided to bring up a topic that would prove to be his biggest mistake of the evening. "So Ian," Graham said, leaning forward with that mischievous glint in his eye, There's been quite a bit of chatter online about your comments regarding younger actors in the industry. Some people felt you were being a bit harsh. Care to respond to that? The smile on Ian's face flickered, just for a moment, but everyone watching could see it. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. The audience, previously warm and receptive, suddenly felt the shift in energy. Harsh? Ian repeated slowly, his voice carrying that theatrical weight that has commanded stages for decades. Graham, I think you've misunderstood what I said entirely. Or perhaps you didn't bother to read my actual words before deciding to bring this up. Graham laughed nervously, trying to keep the mood light. He waved his hand dismissively, as if this were all just playful banter. Well, I'm just saying what people are talking about. Social media has been buzzing about it. You did call them entitled, didn't you? Those were your words. Ian's posture straightened. His eyes, which had been warm and friendly moments before, now looked sharp and focused. The decades of stage experience meant he knew how to command a room, how to make every person feel the weight of his presence. I called the culture entitled. The culture of instant fame, of social media stardom replacing actual craft. There's a difference, Graham. And I would have expected you to understand that distinction. You're a smart man. Surely you can see the difference. The audience had gone quiet. That comfortable buzz of anticipation had been replaced with tension thick enough to cut. You could feel it through the screen, could sense that something had gone wrong, that the carefully orchestrated dance of late-night television was falling apart. Graham shifted in his seat, clearly realizing he'd hit a nerve but seemingly unable to stop himself from pushing forward. Maybe he thought he could still salvage it, with humor. Maybe he genuinely didn't understand how upset Ian was becoming. But Ian, come on. You were young once too. We've all been young and ambitious. Didn't you ever feel like the older generation didn't understand you? Didn't give you enough credit? The older generation taught me my craft, Ian shot back, his voice rising slightly but maintaining perfect control. They didn't coddle me. They didn't tell me I was brilliant just for showing up to rehearsal. They pushed me to be better, to work harder, to respect the art form and everyone who came before me. That's what's missing now. That's what I was talking about. Not individual actors, but an entire cultural shift away from discipline and toward immediate gratification. Graham tried to interject with a joke, something about grumpy old men shouting at clouds, but Ian wasn't having it. His hand came up, stopping Graham mid-sentence. No, Graham. No. You don't get to diminish what I'm saying by making it into some comedic bit for your audience. This matters. This is important. The future of theater, of serious dramatic work, it matters. The cameras captured every second of the growing discomfort. You could see the camera operators adjusting their shots, zooming in on faces, catching every micro-expression. Graham's smile was looking more forced now, less genuine. The sparkle had left his eyes. He glanced at his cards, trying to find a way to redirect the conversation. But Ian wasn't finished. You know what the problem is? Ian continued, his voice carrying that Shakespearean projection that fills theaters and silences audiences. Everyone's so afraid of offending anyone that we can't have honest conversations anymore. We can't say that maybe, just maybe, some of these young actors need to put in more work, need to study their craft, instead of studying their follower counts, need to learn the difference between fame and talent. Graham's expression had shifted from uncomfortable to slightly defensive. His shoulders tensed, his jaw tightened. Ian, I think that's a bit unfair. There are plenty of talented young actors out there working incredibly hard. I've had many of them on this show, and they're dedicated, professional, and brilliant. Did I say there weren't? Ian's tone was sharp now, cutting through the studio like a knife. Did I say all young actors? No. But you and everyone else want to twist my words, want to make me into some villain for speaking truth, for having standards. I've been in this industry for over 60 years, Graham, 60 years. I've worked with the best and I've seen the worst. I think I've earned the right to have an opinion without being crucified for it on your show." The studio audience was completely silent now. Some people looked at each other nervously, eyebrows raised, mouths slightly open. Others stared straight ahead, unsure where to look, afraid to miss anything but also uncomfortable witnessing such raw conflict. This wasn't the fun, boozy atmosphere the Graham Norton show was known for. This was something else entirely. This was real tension, real anger, real friendship potentially falling apart in real time. Graham tried again to lighten the mood. He forced a laugh, picked up his drink, took a sip. "Well, I certainly can't argue with 60 years of experience. You've earned your stripes, that's for sure. Maybe we should move onto something more pleasant. Let's talk about your upcoming projects, shall we?" "Maybe we should talk about how this show has changed," Ian interrupted. And there was something new in his voice now. Something bitter. Something that had been building beneath the surface. Used to be about genuine conversation. About celebrating talent and sharing stories. Now it's all about viral moments and getting people drunk so they'll say something embarrassing. "Is that what you wanted from me tonight, Graham? An embarrassing moment? A clip that will trend on Twitter?" Graham's face flushed. You could see it, even under the studio lights and the carefully applied makeup. His neck turned red, his cheeks colored. "That's not fair, Ian. That's not what this show is about at all. We celebrate people here. We give them a platform to be themselves, to have fun, to connect with audiences. Isn't it though?" Ian pressed, and now he was leaning forward too, matching Graham's earlier posture, mirroring his body language in a way that felt almost aggressive. "Come on, be honest. For once, just be honest with me. You brought up those comments specifically hoping for a reaction, hoping I'd get defensive so you'd have your clip for social media. So teenagers on TikTok could make their little videos about the grumpy old actor who lost his temper. Well, congratulations, you've got it. You've got your moment." The tension had escalated from uncomfortable to genuinely hostile. Graham's producer could be seen in the background, partially visible through the studio doorway, making frantic gestures with his hands, probably signaling to cut to commercial or change topics immediately. But there was no stopping what was happening now. This train had left the station and nobody knew where it was headed. "Ian, I brought it up because it's relevant, because people are talking about it, because you made those comments publicly and people have opinions about them. That's my job," Graham said, and there was an edge to his voice now too. His famous charm was cracking under pressure like ice on a warming lake. "My job is to ask the questions people want answered, to have the conversations people want to hear. I'm not trying to trap you or embarrass you. I'm trying to do my job. Your job used to be making people feel welcome," Ian responded, each word deliberate and measured. "Making them feel comfortable enough to share genuine moments, to open up naturally. Not ambushing them with controversial topics specifically designed to provoke a response to boost your ratings. When did you become one of them, Graham? When did you decide that conflict was more valuable than connection? Ambushing you?" Graham's voice rose now, genuinely offended, his Irish lilt becoming more pronounced. "Ian, you're on a talk show. We talk about things, current things, relevant things. That's literally the entire point of what we do here. I didn't ambush you. I asked you about something you'd classed, said in an interview last week. Something you chose to say to a journalist. If you didn't want to discuss it, maybe you shouldn't have said it in the first place. Don't patronize me, Graham. I'm not patronizing you. I'm trying to have a conversation, but you're being incredibly difficult right now. You're acting like I've attacked you when all I did was ask a simple question." The audience gasped, literally gasped, because Graham Norton doesn't call his guests difficult. He's famous for being gracious, accommodating, for making everyone feel like the most important person in the room. He's the host who makes celebrities feel safe enough to share their most embarrassing stories. But something had snapped. Some line had been crossed. Ian stood up abruptly. The movement was sudden, decisive. The microphone clipped to his jacket made a sharp scratching sound through the speakers, feedback squealing briefly before the sound engineer adjusted levels. Difficult? I'm being difficult. Because I won't play along with your little game? Because I won't give you the soundbite you want? Because I won't perform like a trained seal for your entertainment? Graham stood too. An automatic response. A reflex born from years of hosting. And now both men were facing each other across that famous couch. They were nearly the same height, standing there in the bright lights. Two titans of British entertainment, locked in an unexpected battle. What game, Ian? I asked you about something you said publicly. Something that's been in the news? Something people are discussing? How is that a game? How is that manipulation? I'm confused here. Help me understand what I've done that's so terrible. Because you know exactly how to frame things, Graham. You've been doing this long enough. 20 years behind that desk. You knew that question would provoke me. You knew it would create exactly this kind of drama. You knew, because we've known each other long enough, that you understand how passionate I am about the craft, about protecting the integrity of what we do. And why? For what? For views? For clicks? For your producers to pat you on the back about engagement metrics? For conversation? Graham shot back, his Irish accent growing thicker with emotion, his composure completely gone now. For actual interesting television instead of boring promotional softball questions about projects nobody cares about. I thought you, of all people, would appreciate honest discussion. You've always said you hate the fakeness of Hollywood, the superficial interviews, the meaningless press junkets. I thought I was giving you a chance to really say something meaningful. Honest? Ian's laugh was cold, theatrical, the kind of laugh that could fill the Royal Shakespeare Theatre. There's nothing honest about this. You want honesty? Here's honesty. I thought better of you. I thought we were friends. But friends don't ambush friends on national television for ratings. Friends don't use decades of trust and shared history to create drama. Friends protect each other, support each other, give each other the benefit of the doubt. The studio had gone deathly quiet. The other guests on the couch looked like they wanted to disappear into the upholstery. One of them was literally sinking into the cushions, trying to make themselves smaller, their eyes darting between Ian and Graham like watching a tennis match. Another had their hand over their mouth, clearly shocked by what they were witnessing. Graham's face was red now. Whether from anger or embarrassment or both, it was hard to tell. His hands were shaking slightly. Ian, come on. Don't do this. Please. Sit back down, and let's talk this through like adults. Like the professionals we are. We've known each other too long to let this blow up like this. Just sit down, have another drink, take a breath, and we'll move on. We'll talk about the play, about your career, about anything you want. Like adults? Ian's voice dripped with disdain, every syllable pronounced with precision. Adults have private conversations when there's conflict. They don't air their grievances in front of cameras and studio audiences and millions of viewers at home. They handle things with dignity and discretion. But that's what you wanted, isn't it? The confrontation, the drama, the moment everyone will be talking about tomorrow. Well, congratulations. You've got your viral moment. I hope it was worth it. Ian, please. Graham's voice had lost all its edge now, becoming almost pleading. No, Graham. I'm done. I came here tonight as a colleague, as someone I thought was a friend, someone I've shared drinks with, laughed with, confided in over the years. Instead, I walked into an interrogation, a setup, and I won't stand for it. I won't be used like this. Graham reached out, his hand extended as if to physically stop Ian from leaving. Ian, you're overreacting. Just sit down, have a drink, and we'll move on to something else. Nobody needs to leave. We can fix this. I promise you, we can fix this right now. Overreacting? Ian's voice could have cut glass. Sharp and precise and deadly. That's what you say when you want to dismiss someone's legitimate feelings. When you want to make them feel small for having an emotional response to being hurt. I'm not overreacting. I'm reacting perfectly appropriately to being disrespected on your show, to being used for entertainment, to having our friendship exploited for television ratings. Disrespected? For God's sake, Ian, I asked you one bloody question. One question about something you said publicly. How is that disrespect? It's not about the question. Ian's voice boomed through the studio now. That commanding presence that has held audiences captive for decades, that has silenced theaters full of people with nothing but the power of his performance. It's about the intent behind it. It's about the timing. It's about you using our relationship, our history, our friendship to create drama for your show. That's what's disrespectful. That's what breaks my heart about this moment. Because I trusted you, Graham. I trusted you not to do this to me. Graham threw his hands up in frustration. Fine. You want to leave? Leave then. But don't pretend this is all my fault. Don't walk out of here and tell everyone I'm the villain. You came in here with an attitude, ready to pick a fight, defensive before I even asked the question, and you found one. This is on both of us, Ian. Both of us. Ready to pick a fight? Ian's voice had gone quiet now, which somehow felt more dangerous than the shouting, more menacing than the boom. Graham, I've been in this industry long enough to know when I'm being used, when I'm being manipulated. And tonight, that's exactly what happened. You used me. You used our friendship. You used decades of trust to create a moment for your show. That's not my paranoia. That's not me being defensive. That's reality. And it hurts more than you'll ever know. Jesus Christ, Ian. I didn't use you. I had you on my show. I asked you questions. There's a difference. A huge difference. And I'm sorry if you can't see that right now. Not the way you did it. Not with that look in your eye. Not with that tone in your voice. You were hunting, Graham. Hunting for the moment. And you got it. The two men stared at each other across that iconic couch, and for a moment, it seemed like everything hung in the balance. The whole world seemed to pause, waiting to see what would happen next. Would Ian sit back down? Would Graham apologize more sincerely? Would they find some way to salvage this disaster? To patch up this fracture before it became permanent? Would someone crack a joke, break the tension, find a way back to normalcy? But then Ian reached up and unclipped his microphone. The gesture was deliberate, final, ceremonial almost, like a soldier removing his medals, a priest removing his collar. He carefully placed it on the couch, the small black device looking somehow ominous against the bright upholstery, a symbol of everything that had just broken between them. Ian, don't do this, Graham said, and his voice had lost all its edge now. He sounded tired, resigned, genuinely sad. Don't walk out, please. We can fix this. We've been friends too long to let one conversation end everything. Just give me a chance to make this right. Some things can't be fixed with a witty quip and a glass of wine, Graham, Ian said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper but somehow carrying through the entire studio. You should know that by now. Some betrayals cut too deep. Some trust, once broken, can't be repaired. Graham tried one more time, desperation clear in his voice. Ian, please, I'm sorry if I upset you. That genuinely wasn't my intention. I swear to you, on everything we've been through together, that wasn't my intention. Just sit back down, and we'll talk about your play, about anything you want. I promise. No more controversial questions. No more tension. Just two old friends having a conversation. Ian looked at him for a long moment. The cameras captured everything. The disappointment etched in the lines of Ian's face, the desperation in Graham's posture as he leaned forward slightly, the shocked faces of the other guests who couldn't believe what they were witnessing, the stunned silence of the audience who had come expecting laughter and were instead watching a friendship implode. The problem, Graham, Ian said finally, his voice steady but filled with unmistakable sadness, is that I don't believe you. I don't believe this wasn't your intention. I don't believe you didn't know exactly what you were doing when you asked that question. And that's what hurts the most. Not the question itself, but the calculated nature of it. The deliberateness, the betrayal of trust. Goodbye. And with that, Sir Ian McKellen turned and walked toward the exit. His footsteps echoed in the silent studio, each one seeming louder than the last. Graham called after him once more, his voice breaking slightly. "Ian, come on! Don't do this! Ian!" But the legendary actor didn't turn around, didn't hesitate, didn't even slow his pace. He walked through that studio door, with his head held high, his shoulders back, every inch the dignified performer he'd always been, and let it close behind him with a definitive click that seemed to echo through the entire building. The sound of that door closing felt final, permanent, like a coffin lid shutting, or a chapter ending. It reverberated through the studio, through the silence, through the shocked consciousness of everyone present. Graham stood there for a moment, watching the closed door, his arm still half extended from where he'd been reaching out. He slowly lowered it, running his hand through his hair, a rare moment of genuine vulnerability from the usually unflappable host. The other guests looked absolutely mortified, unsure whether they should say something or stay silent, whether they should comfort Graham or pretend nothing had happened. The studio audience sat frozen, unable to process what they'd just witnessed. This wasn't supposed to happen on the Graham Norton show. This show was supposed to be fun, lighthearted, safe, a place where celebrities could relax, have a few drinks, tell funny stories, and promote their projects. But tonight, something had broken. Something fundamental had shattered between two of Britain's most beloved entertainment figures, and everyone had watched it happen in real time. Graham ran his hand through his hair again, looking down at the microphone Ian had left on the couch, then back up at the cameras. His eyes were slightly glassy, whether from anger or sadness or shock. It was impossible to tell. For the first time in his long, successful career, Graham Norton seemed at a complete loss for words. He opened his mouth as if to speak, then closed it again. What could he possibly say? The door Ian had exited through remained closed. There would be no last-minute return, no reconciliation, no Hollywood ending where everything gets wrapped up neatly before the credits roll. Just silence, broken only by the uncomfortable shifting of the audience and the barely audible whisper of Graham's producer through his earpiece, presumably trying to figure out what to do next, how to salvage the rest of the show. But that door stayed shut, solid, immovable, final. And Sir Ian McKellen was gone, leaving behind nothing but tension, confusion, and the shattered remnants of what had once been a genuine friendship.